Hello, good morning everyone. Welcome to Design and Coursework Chat. This morning I want to talk to you about examination and the things you do before the examination. Now, what is an examination? An examination is a test of your memory. How much you can remember. Isn't it so? So the more you study, the more you practice, the more you can retain in memory, the better you can do in the examination. Whether it is theory, knowledge-based question, understanding question, or application question, it is all about the ability to recall. Even in application questions, you need to recall at least your experience. If you do not have an experience, if you have not seen anything that the question is asking for, you cannot answer the question. It is not that you do not know how to answer the question, it is that you have not got the experience. So the more experience you have, the more exposure you have, the better you will be in an examination, especially those that consist of a higher percentage of weightage on application questions. Otherwise, repetition, repeating, memory helps in doing well in the examination. Okay, now what do you do before the examination? What do you often hear? You often hear your teachers or your parents talk to you about, have you done your revision? Or if you're diligent, then you say, I'm going to do my revision. I have a certain plan and I'm going to prepare for my examination revision. So I'm going to talk about revision. What is it? And the difference between revision and studying. And I'm going to share with you a strategy for revising your work for examination. I'm going to share with you my experience and what I think is the ultimate best strategy that one can ever have. But you don't have to believe me. I'm just sharing with you. You think about that, and then you decide if you want to adopt the idea. Now, one common mistake when students say, I have finished revision, and then they start to play, and then the parents or the teachers felt that it is not enough. Now, what is revision? When the student said he has finished revision, it depends on what is really going on. When you sit down and you read a certain chapter, and if you are still grasping the concept, still trying to understand, working out what those things mean, and trying to make meaning out of it, at that moment, if you think that you're revising, then you're wrong. You are merely still studying. You have not acquired the knowledge. You have not put that into memory, and you will not be able to write them out because you cannot recall them yet, and you do not understand the concept. Now, if you are sitting down on a table and still trying to figure out how to work things out, trying to work out the meanings of stuff of a certain topic, for example, then you are actually studying. So if you leave to the last few days thinking that you're actually doing revision when you're still working things out, you are at the studying phase. So that is no wonder. Many times when a student takes the examination, he or she says, I've already studied, I've already done my revision, but I still fail. Why? One of the reasons is because you cannot recall. Yes, you studied, yes, you revised, but you cannot recall. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So when you say you are doing revision, the revision means you have finished studying. You understood the concept. You understood the topics. You can do your work. All the questions you can do. You understand little nitty-gritty stuff of the topic. You can recall at your fingertips. And then you do it again. You look through the contents again, and then you familiarize with the contents again. The next time when you do the same questions or similar ones, you're actually faster. That is revision. Revision means you have already finished your studying, finished trying to figure things out, and you are in the process of repeating, reviewing what you have learned. That is revising. So make sure you understand the difference between the two. If you want to do well in the examination, the day before when you read through the content, you must know that you are at the level of revising, not studying. Okay? Now let's move on to the next topic. How do you study for the examination, or how do you revise for the examination? What is the best strategy? I'm going to share with you my experience first. I came from a regular school with very interesting friends. So this class, chemistry, science, we did a combined science, so we have chemistry and physics. For the entire year of my graduation year, I can tell you we practically learned nothing, because the teacher comes in and couldn't teach because the class was too noisy. Yeah. So what to do when it comes to the examination? When you want to take an O level and you know nothing, what do? I wanted to pass the examination. I want to pass the examination for myself, and I don't want my parents to be disappointed with me, of course. So what I did was, I knew I don't have much time. I knew that I need to pass the test. So I thought to myself, what can I do? What can I do to help me understand the topics quick enough, effective enough, and efficient enough? And what I did was, I rang up a friend who was from a better school, a very, very much better school, who has graduated a year before me. And I said, do you still have your textbook with you? I don't seem to believe the textbook that we have. So I think maybe a better school will have a better textbook. And true enough, when I met him, I got his textbook, his physics and chemistry textbooks. Boy, they were thick with lots of information, lots of questions to attempt. So I brought the books home, I planned my time, and then this is how I did it. Remember, I have almost close to zero knowledge on chemistry and physics, okay? Almost zero. You ask me what a molecule is, I tell you I don't know, and I'm not kidding. What I did was, I took the physics book. Okay, let's say physics. Yes. Okay, let's start with physics. And it is the same with what I did with chemistry as well. So for physics, I took the textbook, I went to the last chapter, and I looked at the last question, the revision questions in the chapter, and I tried that question. I did not start from the beginning. Pay attention to that. I started from the back, right at the end, the last question. So was I able to complete the question and do the question? Of course not. I read the question and I did not understand the terms, some of the terms used. So what do? I look at the previous chapters that talks about that term and the concept, and I understood that term and the concept. Then I went back to the last question and I attempted the last question. And then as I tried on the last question, I will be stuck at a certain process because there will be something else that I did not understand. And then I picked that term up, I look at the previous chapter, I found the chapter, and I read and I understood, and then did all the questions under the chapter. And then I went back to the last question again, and there you go, I finished the last question. Now the initial part was tough. I took a long time. because I have to go through and fro, go back to in history in the previous chapters to understand the concept, so that I can answer, so that I can attempt the last question. And then when I finish the last question, I move on to the second last, and then I move on to the next last, and then I move forward. If there's 10 questions, I'll do question 10, and then do question 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. What is the advantage of doing this? You will notice that as I progress through the first question, I do it faster and faster and faster and quicker, because now I have understood the most difficult concept. And then as I attempt the easier questions, they cannot be more difficult, but more easy, much easier. So can you imagine if there's 10 chapters? I completed chapter number 10. And then when I move on to chapter number 9, I would have understood most of the concepts. As I move on to chapter 8, I would have understood even more of the concepts that I need to know. Then when I progress to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it is nothing. I've already known almost everything. So this is what I do and what I did from the last chapter to the first chapter. You tackle the most difficult stuff first, and then you go understand all the little things that makes the difficult stuff difficult, and then you make them easy by understanding them. So I did from the last chapter to the first chapter, and did that for physics, and I did that for chemistry. Do I have an opportunity to practice on laboratory works? No. So I do not know how to mix chemicals. I do not know how to write chemical equations. So I went to the examination doing nothing for my practical work. So anyway, when I got back my O-levels result, I got a B3 for science, which I suspect I might have got 100% for my theory components, for both my physics and my chemistry. Otherwise, how do you come up with a B3 with the practical components 0? Okay, now how do you do revision? What is the best way? What other strategies did I adopt when I do my revision? Remember I told you about examination. Examination is all about memory. How much you can recall. And you tell me, if I tell you something today, 10 years later, can you recall what I just told you, as well as if I ask you to recall it tomorrow? Okay? You will be able to recall something better when the lapse is shorter. You can recall something better tomorrow than if it's 10 years later. So a lot of students, when they do their revision, their strategy is they look at the examination timetable, they look at which is the first subject that is going to be examinable first, and then they study the first subject first, and then they study the second subject, so on and so forth. So when the day comes for the examination, day 1 examination, they will need to recall contents that they did 7 subjects ago. Okay, because they started the first subject first and the last subject last. So what is your chance of being able to recall the contents that you studied or revised 7 subjects ago? And what is freshest in your mind was the last subject. It could be yesterday, the day before. You studied and revised the last subject yesterday, and you did an examination for the first subject, which you did 7 subjects ago. How effective is that? So I figure that if I want to make the best of my examination and my memory, then whatever I need to have when I take the examination, the information must be fresh and relevant. So what I did was, I have my examination timetables out. I know which subject first, second, third, fourth, last, and then last. I planned my revision so that I do my first subject last and last subject first. So if the last subject is science and the first subject is mathematics, okay, I will start with science. Last subject science, I revise science first. And then 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mathematics, first subject, I will revise it last. Now what is the advantage of this? Okay, listen carefully. I do my mathematics last, and I know how much time I need to study, understand, then I know how much, and then I plan how much time I need for revision. I make sure I have a revision component at least before I finish my studying. So I finish my revision 2 days before the examination. 1 day before the examination, I actually did nothing. Okay, so on the first day of examination, when it's mathematics, for example, whatever I have studied and revised is the freshest in my mind. So I went for my mathematics examination. And then once I finish my mathematics examination, I have the rest of the day, the afternoon and the night, for example, before the second subject examination will take place. By the time I take my second subject examination, I know that the second subject is the second freshest information in my head. The second freshest. So what I do after my first examination is I will continue to do my revision. I'll revise again and again for my second subject. And then when the second subject is done, you revise again for the third subject. And the third subject happens to be the third freshest information in your head, because you studied the first subject last and the last subject first. And this is how I did it. I didn't do particularly extremely well for the examination, but I did pass, reasonable and good enough for me to be where I am today. I wished someone would have told me back then, a long time ago, that this could be done. I could have ended up even much better. And because I so desired that someone would have told me this, so I thought of telling you that all these things, okay, so that you know. Okay, let's recap. What is revision and study? If you say you're revising, please understand that you need to do your study first. If you are figuring out concepts and stuff like that, you're not really doing revision. You are actually studying. And after you study, make sure you do 1 or 2 rounds of revision and make sure you really know. How do you know you really know? You take out a piece of paper, blank, and if you can write them out, you know. If you cannot write them out, you don't know. And you will not be ready for the examination and you won't do well. And that is how students fail. And they say, hey, I understand. You understand, so what? You cannot write. Okay, if you can write it out from a blank piece of paper, from nothing, ready for examination. And number 2, strategy for revising: last paper first, first paper last. And then every time when you finish an examination, revise for the next paper, and then you repeat. Okay, that is all for now. I hope it helps. Bye bye.